Hi, welcome to Healthy Home Cooking. My name is Christina. You know, I'm almost kind of wondering, is this even a worthy enough subject for a cooking video? But you know, if you're like me, you've eaten many of these over your lifetime, and most of them have been kind of unless you get them at a restaurant that knows what they're doing. And I'm talking about the meatball. Meatballs, okay, super easy, right? It seems to make, and they're really easy to make, but how do we prepare them so that they aren't dry? The problem with making meatballs is that oftentimes you need to cook them for a length of time that usually means you're going to undercook your sauce or undercook your meat or something. There's usually something wrong with most recipes. They don't come out right. And so I've done a little homework on what makes up the perfect meatball, and I think I've achieved it. When I made these, they were so darn good. So here are the key points in making juicy meatballs. And it's two things that I have found. One is you want to create a little bit of a browning effect on the outside of your meatball before you kind of simmer the meatballs in a tomato sauce, okay, to finish cooking it. And you can only achieve that by cooking them separately, obviously, in a skillet, and getting browning all over, all right? And then you're gonna transfer them over to a saucepan and add your sauce and finish cooking them, and you're good. The other way is you can broil them, which is actually how I'm gonna try making them tonight. I haven't done it this way before, and so this is how I'm gonna do it tonight. And then the second thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that you get meat that isn't too lean. This is no time to be skimping on fat, to be honest with you, when you're making meatballs. So don't buy extra lean meat, don't even buy lean meat. You need to buy some meat with some fat content in it so that you get some flavor and they don't dry out on you. And so what I use today is a combination of turkey, and yes, I know turkey can be drying, but what I'm using is dark meat, ground turkey, and then I'm also using ground pork.
All right, so we'll start with the bread, and I have 3 slices, of which I'm going to cut off the crusts because those will be just a little bit too hard, and I'm going to soak them in buttermilk to soften them up. So the crusts come off, and we'll be left with just the bread. And there are a couple of ways to process the bread. You can put them into your food processor and make breadcrumbs, fine breadcrumbs, which is typically what you'll find. But today I'm going to try leaving the bread in chunks and soaking those in buttermilk to soften them up a bit, just for something a little different. But you can do it either way. So massage the breadcrumbs in your buttermilk to properly coat all of them, and then just set them aside while you prepare everything else. Next, I'm going to grate cheese. And guys, I'm going to put down in the description below all of the quantities, so don't worry about that. I'm going to list it below. I'm going to need about a half an onion and about 4 cloves of garlic. And the best way to peel off this peel from the garlic is just to whack them like I just did with the knife. The peels come off really easily, and it makes chopping garlic just so much easier when you just release the paper from the cloves. And I'm going to chop these up nice and fine as I can. And we'll be sauteing these with our onions later because we don't want any raw onions in these meatballs. I've tried it that way, and they just simply don't taste quite as good. So we're going to actually start with that once I've chopped this onion nice and fine. And what we want is to get a little bit of browning on our onions because they provide good flavor. So we'll start with some olive oil in a pan, and we'll saute the onions and first get them nice and translucent. And then after about 10 minutes, they're going to start turning nice and brown. And like I said, those are going to add some really good flavor to our meatballs. So now we're going to add the garlic. We don't add it at the beginning when we saute the onions because there's a chance of burning them. Next is the parsley, and I'm going to just squeeze a little bit of water out of those. And this is fresh parsley. I like the Italian flat leaf, and I'm going to just chop this real fine so I don't have any real big chunks of parsley in my meatballs. And then we're ready to start mixing everything. I have 1 pound of ground turkey and 1 pound of pork, to which now I'm going to add everything. The parsley. I have fennel seeds, dried oregano, and then a good hefty dose of salt. My breadcrumbs that have been soaking in buttermilk. And if you add a little bit of the buttermilk, it's no big deal. I'm going to add 2 eggs to this mixture, and that provides some binding. And then my favorite part, I get in there with my hands. Don't be afraid. Get your hands dirty. This is the best way to mix everything in there. And then also while you're in there, you can start breaking up your breadcrumbs a little bit, or your bread cubes. Now I'm going to add the sauteed onions and garlic and some cheese. And that's probably about 4 ounces just to start. And now I'm going to mix it all together and then get ready to start forming my meatballs. So to start, I've put a little bit of extra virgin olive oil on my sheet pan, and I'm going to just sort of distribute this all over the pan to ensure that, I mean, even though there's a good amount of fat in the meatballs, you know, I don't want them to stick, so I'm going to just put a little olive oil on my pan to ensure that. And then I'm going to start mixing my meatballs. So I just pulled this out of the refrigerator, so it is a little bit cold, and really I should allow this to come to room temperature, but you know, they're going to stay a little bit better formed if they remain cold. So I am going to go ahead and form them now while they're a bit cold and get a good size together. And guys, I mean, this really does work best if you just use your hands. Don't be afraid of food. I know so many people don't want to touch raw meat, but you know what? There's soap and water. That's what that's for. So just wash your hands before and after. But there's nothing like the tools that nature gave you. So just go ahead and use your hands. Make a nice ball, okay? This is a good size ball, and I'm gonna just go ahead and lay these out. And I'm gonna just, oh God, they smell so good. So here we go. We're gonna just keep forming until we've gone through all of our meat. And you know, they're not going to expand, they're not like cookies, so you can put them, actually you can really kind of put them a little bit closer together. But the key is to just make them uniform in size and you know, make sure that they then cook evenly. You don't want one small and one big. I'm going to stick a breadcrumb right in the middle of that and just form that up. Okay, so I'm going to just carry on with this until I got all my meat rolled up in balls. This recipe of 2 pounds of meat should really net you about 14 or so meatballs. Okay, so that should be your guide if you make them about this size. Of course, if you make them smaller, you'll have more. Okay, all right, now these are going to go into the broiler next. Okay, so I've just put the meatballs in the oven. The broiler is on. I chose to put it on low. I can go low broiler or high broiler. I decided to just go low. I'm gonna just keep my eye on them. I'm gonna stay here in the kitchen. I've set the timer for about 7 minutes. Might need more like 10 on low, I'm not sure. The thing is, everybody's oven is a little bit different. Your broil settings may be different. My broiler doesn't tell me what the temperature is, it just says high or low. So I don't know, I have to kind of guess here. So just stay put, get yourself a glass of red wine, enjoy the time relaxing in the kitchen while you keep an eye on your meatballs and make sure that they don't burn. They're already starting to smell really good, and I'm gonna just stay here, stand by, and kind of keep an eye on it and see how it goes, and at the 7-minute mark and then maybe around 10, and just kind of see if I got a little bit of that browning on top. And if I do, the idea again is not to cook them to finality in the oven. We are just broiling them to get that browning, and we're gonna finish them in the sauce. So just remember that we're not trying to cook them, so it's totally fine if they're still raw on the inside. All right, so just remember that. I've just pulled my meatballs out of the broiler, and this is the result. I am super happy with that color. It's got a great brown exterior. They've been toasted on top. They're probably a little bit toasted on the bottom, and I think they're perfect. And this was about 10 minutes. So now I'm going to just transfer my meatballs over into the sauce. And I'm not going to lie to you, today I decided not to make my own sauce. We will save that for another video on another day. But I've bought just a fantastic jarred sauce from a company that makes organic tomato sauces, and this is delicious. So today I'm just making it easy. So again, you know, you don't have to make your own sauce if it's just too time consuming. You know, don't worry about that. The key here, I think, is to make your own meatballs, because this is where you can really control, you know, the important aspect of the meal is the meatballs, and this is where you can control the flavor and, you know, really dial it in the way you like it. And so good. All right, so we're gonna just let those warm up. I'm gonna put a cover on the pot and just let that come to a little bit simmer, maybe about 8 or 10 minutes. And while I'm waiting for my sauce to heat up and cook my meatballs, I'm gonna grate a little bit more cheese. I have some Parmesan cheese that I bought, and I've got one of these Xylus graters that I love. You'll see these sometimes in Italian restaurants. You just put the cheese inside and then close that up, hold that down with your thumb, and then just turn the little dial. And oh man, this is such a nice way to have freshly grated Parmesan cheese. Super handy. What I do is I just, whatever cheese might be left over, as if there's going to be any cheese left over, but if there's any cheese left over, you can actually just store it in the Xylus, and then I put it inside a Ziploc bag and put the whole thing into the refrigerator and store it that way. I don't sit here and clean this every single time. I may just clean this every couple of weeks, but this is a really handy tool. By the way, these little ends, you know, this is the rind. When you get to this end of the Parmesan cheese, you would typically just think, okay, I'm gonna throw that out because this is really ungratable. This is so tough that, I mean, you can't even like chew into this, okay? And so rather than throwing this out, actually, I found a helpful trick for what to do with this. And in the fall, when I start making like a boatload of soups, I am going to actually throw this into my soup pots to add flavor. This rind actually contains quite a bit of flavor, so throw this in a Ziploc bag, a freezer bag, and throw it in the freezer and bring it out when you're making soup. So good use for this. Okay, so it's been 10 minutes and my sauce is bubbling away nicely. All right, so let's plate up and eat dinner. But hey, before I dive in, let me actually just show you the inside. I mean, this is still so juicy. Maybe you can't see it, but there's nothing dry about it. I just broke off the side just so I could see, and it is still just juicy as can be. So this is going to be an absolutely delicious meatball. All right, so I've let my meatball cool off a little bit so I don't burn my tongue, but I cannot wait any longer. I have got to give this thing a try. And it is just juicy. Oh my gosh, I cannot wait. Oh, the smell. I mean, I can smell the fennel and the herbs, the oregano, and then a little cheese. Oh my god. Wow. Oh, honestly, this is divine. You really have to try this if you like meatballs. I'm going to serve this tonight with a little salad. I made a mixed green salad with olives, sliced up some tomatoes, and I'm putting a little bit of vinaigrette on top. Just a real simple salad. That, the meatballs, a little cheese on top. What could be better? Hey, so I hope you enjoyed watching me make meatballs, and we'll give this recipe a try. If you like the video, please click the little like button down below. That would be enormously helpful. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do so, and click the little red bell below so that you can be notified when future videos are uploaded. And of course, if you have a friend that likes meatballs as much as you do, please share it with them. Arrivederci.